Robin Russo, come on up, each have a minute.
We'll go out of order. Robin Russo, Venice. Staff's findings are clear and well-crafted. Thank you. The specific plan exception should not be granted because there are no exceptional circumstances here. Also, under the law, the outdoor seating does count as service floor area in the coastal zone. The parking requirements of the specific plan, which I believe mirror those in the certified land use plan, are higher than those in the LAMC for a reason, to assure adequate parking for residents and the visitors in this area and of the coastal zone. Also, this is the beach impact zone, and we should definitely not approve an exception in this area. There's precedent by this very commission for 259 Hampton that no parking in this area is unacceptable. We need to find some parking, preferably covenanted. I guess you'll consider it lease in lieu, but this is the law, and they can reduce the service floor area. And I just want to say I appreciate the effort for a creative solution, but we do need to follow the law because we can't afford a precedent of this kind, and hopefully we'll put these ideas forward in the land use plan, in the local coastal program process.
Judy Goldman. Robin is a hard act to follow because she knows all the facts and important things. I just want to say that I support the staff recommendation to approve the restaurant. I think it's a great restaurant. I love their fish tacos. But I think it's really important to deny this specific plan exception for parking. Neighbors are suffering. People who live nearby can't find a place to park. And people who live in Venice, a mile or two in the 3-mile radius of Venice, who might be walking there, are not going to be walking there at night for 2 miles. They're going to be bringing their cars, and they're going to be taking the spaces of people who live nearby. And I can tell you, we're already suffering, people who live nearby having to walk at night to find their parking, when they find their parking places, and many, many people can't. So please, don't set this precedent. It's dangerous. We need the parking. Put a condition on this that requires parking, and approve the rest of it. Thank you.
2 hard acts to follow. Mr. Trude is a developer, Southerly Group LLC, so he's not a random, casual, newcomer. So that should be considered. In their findings that they submitted, they talked about alternative carpool options. An affiliated group have taken over the waterfront in Venice and created a nightmare of really loud music. I'm not sure it's permitted. Traffic backlog. So I wouldn't take anything very lightly. These are serious operators coming in, organized, Aussie kind of collective. Mr. Francisco lives in the neighborhood. He's there at this place all the time. He attempted to put a motion on the VNC agenda to put LaDOT bikes there to service the Great White. Is this the hand feeding the hand? I don't know, but I don't like it. Mr. Brown's inconsistent with principles, intent, and goal of the specific plan is very much on point. You cannot use public parking. Specific plan says it, LUP says it, Coastal Act says it. Thank you.
Okay, that was our, I'm sorry. We have the council office. Len, come on.
You overlooked him twice tonight.
Like I said, I'm lucky I'm here tonight. I've been very sick for about a week, so my head is still a little lightheaded here tonight.
Len Wynn, Planning Deputy for Councilmember Mike Bonin, here tonight to support Venice Neighborhood Council and Venice Chamber in support of Great White's request. Sam has been a good operator that's worked very hard to build a restaurant that is supported by community. Councilmember is supportive of his efforts to enhance the public right-of-way, activate it, while enhancing public safety. So thank you.
Thank you. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead, and we've got 3 minutes for rebuttal. Come on up.
Thought experiment. There are situations where you do look ahead, you look forward, and you use those isolated situations to sort of see, what is going on here? And many times there are things that have been brought before the APC that actually would be permitted, right? But the operator or the location or the circumstances don't behoove it to be permitted. This is the exact opposite. We're not under appeal. This is not the presentation tonight. The presentation tonight is talking about this location, historically, what it was used for, how it's used today, and the purpose that it will serve going forward. And I'm not asking you to condition this as a broad brush, but more to look at a specific area that has more pedestrians and more bikers than people in cars. It does us no good, really, to have 3 parking spaces 750 feet away. It just does not. But it does us a lot of good to have this operator pay for bike racks, maintain them for the life of those bike racks, and those bike racks will be there after this operator's gone, if they ever are. So I'm just asking you to look ahead without, any sense of antagonism, because this is where it starts. This is where it starts. I would say that if you're going to condition this, there would have to be just certain, adjustments that are made in the way that you do so. This is a lease in lieu, therefore an SPE, that kind of thing. Okay, if you go that route, if you go this way, grant the SPE as is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Commission, do we have any questions for staff before we close public testimony and go into deliberation?
This is Commissioner Margulies. I just want to confirm something. We heard about sidewalk seating in the public right-of-way.
Exactly.
And who grants, where in the record, given what we heard earlier this evening, where in the record do we see an approval that says that this operator, this owner actually has the ability to have, I know they have seating out there now, but like under what permission?
As we heard earlier, and as identified in condition number 6, staff would require the applicant to receive an R permit from the Department of Transportation.
So it's unpermitted now?
Commissioner Margulies, is that a future condition, a future satisfaction, or do they have permission today for the sidewalk seating that they currently operate?
This is Julietta with City Planning. Just to clarify, so the Department of Transportation they do have the authority and the jurisdiction to issue a revocable permit. What the revocable permit allows are for structures to be put in, not permanent structures, but temporary structures like tables and chairs to be placed on city property. That's all it allows for. In the coastal zone, anytime you're creating a use such as service area for a restaurant, that requires additional review under a coastal development permit. It's a use that has to be permitted as part of a coastal development permit. So at this particular site, the applicant did submit proof that they did obtain, I think, an encroachment permit or revocable permit for a certain number of tables and chairs, but that's all that allows, the placement of the tables and chairs on city property. There's no CDP to allow for the use of those tables and chairs as service area for the restaurant.
This is Commissioner Margulies, so let me make sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that it's up to us to decide if outdoor seating should be approved as part of the coastal development permit?
Yes, so the specific plan, the definition of service floor area is in the specific plan. It doesn't specify that it has to be on the property or not on the property. In general, a coastal development permit, whether development happens on private property or public right-of-way or city-owned property, requires review. There needs to be some sort of review, whether it's an exemption, a coastal development permit, or any other type of action. So the coastal development permit requirement, in addition with the definition in the specific plan, requires a certain amount of review. So whether you're doing an outdoor patio on your private property or in the right-of-way, if it's meant to serve the public as part of a restaurant, that's subject to review. So there are a couple of additional things I'd like to clarify, and I think some of the public comments did allude to this. The city is in the process of preparing the local coastal program for Venice. And solutions like providing different ways of providing the required parking or ride sharing or things like that, that's all something that can be discussed as part of the local coastal program. But at this point in time, we are held to the requirements of the specific plan. And so the appropriate request here is a request for reduced parking under a specific plan exception. That's the path in order to waive any required parking for this site. And it sounded like the applicant is willing to provide off-site parking with a lease in lieu of the covenant. So if that's the direction the commission is going, the specific plan exception for 0 parking spaces does have to be approved. It has to be granted so that the applicant doesn't have to file for a variance. In absence of waiving the required parking for the site, the applicant would have to request its own variance.
Commissioner Waltz-Morocco, can we talk again about the 30% rule about bicycle replacement here? I mean, I know, I've been sitting here for a while, and sometimes people come with crazy amounts of parking that they want to cover with bikes. And it seems to me when you're talking about 3 spaces, the 30% rule shouldn't apply. I mean, this is even a stupid thing for me to say because that is the rule, and if you want to change the rule, then go do it, and that's what we have now. But it just seems to me that, the 30% rule was there to knock down joke amount of replacement. When you're talking about 3, especially in this sort of situation, it just seems to make so much sense. Is there any way that this 30% rule can be not applied to this case?
So the bike swap, this is Giulietto again, the bike swap is part of the zoning code. It's not identified in the specific plan, but we have used it in the specific plan to allow the swap of required vehicle parking. The way the 30% is applied is it's applied to the required parking for the use. So in this case, as a result of the project, with their 0 non-conforming rights, or there's 0 required non-conforming parking, and then the required additional 3 parking, we can only apply that 30% to the 3 spaces. So we're held to what the code requires and restricts us to. In absence of, allowing for a bike swap, the only other option here is a specific plan exception or the off-site parking.
So to be clear, the bike swap is an option, correct?
No, so it's only an option if